Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Glens Falls City Council meeting, Tuesday, March 22nd. We'll start tonight's meeting with a public hearing, actually two public hearings. The first one is to review our Community Development Block Grant Program to review the year 2021. And to do that, our consultant, Jim Thatcher from CT Mal, to come out and talk to us about it.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. There's a handout for folks in the public. There's 5 or 6 of them for those that are interested, and I think the council members got theirs in their packet last week. I'll be as brief as possible so the public can have a chance to weigh in. As you all know, the city of Glens Falls is what's called an entitlement community through the Housing and Urban Development Department in Washington. You are entitled, therefore, to an annual grant anywhere between, in recent years, $480,000 to $510,000, depending on a formula HUD uses. That money comes to you automatically. You don't have to compete for it. You do have to do some planning for how it's used, and you have to meet some federal laws and regulations about its use for the benefit of the greater community at large. But you are, again, it's automatic money as long as the HUD federal budget gets passed. And you kind of wait for those awards this time of year. So we are entering sort of the spring planning period for what's called the 2022 allocation that you're waiting to hear from HUD as to what that amount will be. To be eligible to spend this money out in the community, you need to meet what's called a national objective. This is a statutory requirement for this funding source. There are 3 of those. I'm not going to go through all 3 because only one of them is really prevalent these days. The most popular objective is benefit to low and moderate income people, households, families, individuals, residents, and just city residents, since your money does not spread out to other parts of Warren County. It's just for City of Glens Falls households. And that's the most popular justification, that benefit to low and moderate income people. There are many uses for this funding that you get automatically that you can budget for. There's affordable housing, which I know is kind of a hot topic these days, whether it be home repair, grants to individual households. You've run a home buyer assistance program for many years that helps first-time buyers get into a house for the first time and achieve the dream of ownership. You've done emergency repair programs for people that are low and moderate income and their furnace conks out, or they have a severe roof leak, usually in the colder months, and there's no other way for them to turn to some immediate assistance. Neighborhood improvements, including sidewalks, curbs, street trees, some minor drainage, crosswalks, things like that are eligible in certain parts of the city that are low and moderate income. That's wards 4, 5, part of 5, Ward 1, all of Ward 1 and part of Ward 3 as of a couple years ago. There's a public service component to this funding where a certain percentage of this grant every year can be allocated to nonprofit agencies, primarily ones that do sort of human service needs, things like the Salvation Army, for example, the Senior Center, the Youth Center. There's a whole host of 9 or 10, 11 that you've been funding historically off and on every year, things that address homelessness, at-risk youth issues, anti-poverty type programs for people in real need, things like that. It's not so much for the arts groups or things like the Hyde, unfortunately, but they're not really meeting a need that's at that lower income spectrum. It's more real human service type issues. You also could budget some of this money for economic development. That has not been as popular in recent city budgets for this grant money as in the past, but you could provide loans and grants to businesses that pledge to create jobs. Typically very large projects that are going to bring 50 or 100 jobs to the city, if that were to happen, probably would go to another source like Empire State Development to get a bigger kind of grant. These are more for small businesses, but that is an eligible activity under this program. And there are other things like playground equipment that could be in one of your budgets year to year, or acquisition of and demolition of blighted properties, maybe through the Urban Renewal Agency, is something you could budget for if that need arose. So there's a whole host of activities for the Common Council and the mayor to consider along with your Community Development Office and the public. The process to get through this budget for the spring is usually this first public hearing, which is a chance to just sort of talk about what you've been doing in the past and what you can do. And then a second public hearing in May, about 6 to 8 weeks from now. As in that time, we will work with the mayor and you folks through the Community Development Committee and Patrick Dowd, your Community Development Director, to craft the 2022 budget, present that back to the council and the public. There's a comment period before that second May public hearing. People can weigh in on where you plug in the numbers, and then once you adopt that, it goes to HUD in Washington for approval. The start of your spending year is August 1st, so we start in March to get all the hurdles out of the way before August 1st. And you do have older money that you don't have to spend it all in 12 months. It'd be nice if everyone could get this out the door in 12 months, but you are allowed to carry over some older funds, which you can continue to program into these activities as the need arises. So that's what I wanted to kind of summarize for you. I hope I touched on at least sort of the highlights. And that concludes my remarks, unless there's questions from the council and the mayor.
Jim, do we, with these excess funds, do we have some flexibility on where they go, or do we have to keep them within the certain programs they were initially designated for?
Basically, as long as it's a HUD eligible activity under the federal regulations, which is a fairly long list, you can budget for those items. So staying true to your historic local budgets is not, you don't have to. You can change that up. You have what's called an annual action plan, which is a planning document that is your blueprint for your budget. And there's a 5-year consolidated planning document that's redone every 5 years. If something is allowed by HUD in Washington, but not in the 5-year planning document, you'd have to amend that big planning document, which is a couple of hurdles to get through. So as long as your budget is consistent, but not exact to your planning documents that HUD knows, looks at as your route for how to spend the money, you have a lot of flexibility.
Okay, thank you.
Oh, go ahead, please.
Is there any opportunity to put any of these funds towards sidewalks or anything that's not in the mapped area? We can't move money from one ward to the other if it's not in the eligible areas. Is
Correct.
that correct? So the
Correct.
second ward can't get any of these funds? That's what I want to
Yeah,
clarify,
no.
yeah.
Point of order.
The second ward, right, the second ward on paper is your more healthy ward, and it has historically never been eligible.
Yeah,
But-
or half of my wards, or more than
Right.
half of my ward, yeah.
Same with the
Yeah.
fifth.
But remember, I've had, so what we wanted, so this first meeting is really to talk about 2021 and what we've done. I know I've mentioned to each of you that we do have some leftover money that's specifically set aside from past budgets and sidewalks. And Jim's not mentioning right here because it's not, he's just talking about the CBG development grant money. But we did receive from HUD through the state an additional grant that we could use towards businesses
Yes.
for COVID recovery, a one-time amount, close to $500,000.
345.
345, sorry. I don't want to expand it that much, huh? So, 345,000. And then we had some separate money from HUD, a one-time for home buyers and low-income home ownership. And that is a one-time coming in this coming budget year. So, my goal that I will review with all of you, or my thoughts are, to take as much as we can out of the 2022 budget that we know, we're waiting to find out exactly how much we get. As soon as we know, I'd like to push more of it towards our sidewalks and our street paving. We're also working at the same time. I know we just sent out to you the initial list of street paving needs. So we're going to do the same with sidewalks. And I'm gonna take as much of the CHIPS money and fill in, so what I was kind of, what I've asked DPW to do is to ignore the boundaries that, the limitations that are set on the two funding, on the funding supply, look at all of our needs, and then we prioritize them. And if it's in the second ward, Bob, where they can't spend the CHIPS money, or excuse me, they can't spend the CBG money, we're gonna spend our CHIPS money. And then where we can, where we have extra money left over, and again, we're gonna be able to pull money out that would normally, let's say, housing. Can you give me a ballpark last year in housing? What was the budget of this CBG money for housing?
Yeah, in any given year, it's about 120,000.
So I'm hoping to take that 120,000 and almost move all of it, with your approval, towards sidewalks and paving, because we've got a separate amount that we can use for housing as a one-time only. So I am looking to do that, and we'll talk to you about it all as we get the numbers. It's a really great opportunity. We're gonna have more money than we've had in a long time to address sidewalks and paving, and in that also is trees.
So you would like us to give you our hopes for things that need to be fixed in our wards regardless of these boundaries, because the other sources of funding will be prioritized for those areas?
Absolutely. Start with the streets that I sent you, add whatever you need, and also feel free in the list of the streets that we sent you, add a highlight if you'd like. You know, yes, this street particularly is please make this a priority. Then I'm gonna do the same with sidewalks right away, and then give you a chance to add to that, and then yes, that's exactly what we'll do. We'll ignore the lines and put the money and move the money where it can be spent. The CHIPS money is unrestricted, meaning it's just for sidewalk, streets, and, sidewalk, streets, and trees. So we'll be able to curbs too.
Yeah, the good news with this funding, as the mayor's touched upon, it doesn't prevent you from getting state grants or other federal grants for anything. It's just there, and it's automatic.
Yeah.
But you can leverage it to the extent you can for increase the activities you have going here, or do new things with other grants. It doesn't prohibit you or make you look not competitive for anything else that's out there.
Jim, can we use these grants as part of the matching formula for other grants?
Yes, in some cases. And the only reason I say, I have a caveat to that, is that the match these days is so complicated program to program, that we want to look at it,
Right.
but it is allowable as a match in general, which is unique for a lot of programs. Great question.
That is a good question.
Yeah.
Anybody else? Questions for Jim? Any questions from the public? Yes?
When you say streets and pavements and trees,
Yes.
will that include curbing?
It can include curbing.
There are several areas around where I live, over around Lexington Street, where the curbing has deteriorated or just needs to be replaced or is non-existent.
Yeah, and some of that non-existent will stay non-existent because some of the neighborhoods and the residents don't want, there are residents actually even in the second ward, and I'll give the example of Graves, that we tried to put sidewalks in and the residents asked us not to. But, so yes, and there's your second ward councilman, and you can let him know and he'll make sure he puts that on the list.
Yeah, because it's kind of funky where I live is down in front of my house on Lexington, there used to be curbing there. But on the back, nobody wants the curb coming out Lexington.
Yeah, so we do what we can. The truth is that we've not had the money for a long time for the amount of paving and sidewalks that we need. And we're trying to address it, but it's usually the worst of the worst. We could never, it would cost well over $3 million just to do the sidewalks in the city of Glens Falls and nothing else. And that kind of money, people have not wanted to spend the money, pay the taxes that it would take to do that. At one time, the city of Glens Falls had 2 full-time crews of people that didn't, all summer long, just laid sidewalks. An entire 2 cement crews. We don't have anybody anymore. We contracted out. We did that. We reduced the number of employees to help reduce our taxable burden. Great question. Anybody else? So then we'll go, if you don't mind, council, I'd like to open this up to our second public hearing, which is regarding our raising of our rates for fire department, the services that we provide. It's been 4 years since 2018 since these free fees, have been increased. We've raised them to those equivalent to those of communities around us. And I know that you've gotten the exhibit with the fees for your consideration and for the public to ask any questions about.
Mayor, if I could?
Yes?
For my own education, do you use an outside building service for this?
Thank you. I did know, yes.
You do that. Do you have any idea how much we don't collect? Just roughly.
Not off the top of my head, I think the chief would be able to tell you that answer tomorrow if you reached out to him. I think it's also might be in his annual report as well.
It is.
But I don't want to speak for it because.
And my last question is this: what happens if a citizen in the city can't afford to pay? Is there some sort of a way that that's taken care of?
I know we provide the service regardless of their ability to pay, but that is all I know. We don't, go ahead.
There is a process in place that they can, I don't know what it's called, but they can request some special consideration through the fire department, but I don't know all the details, but
there is
something in place.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
That's all.
Yeah, Mayor, I think it's good that we take a look at, this council and future councils and administrations take a look at their fee structure, make sure we're competitive with other areas. Certainly important, and with fees, it helps reduce the burden on our taxpayers.
This has done 4 years, so
Right?
it would be good for us to kind of review this on at least a biannual basis probably.
So I'm glad this is being brought up. Thank you.
Thank you. Having no more comment, we can take a motion to close the public comment period.
So moved. Second.
All in favor?
Hi.
Okay. So, again, welcome to the 2022 Tuesday, March 22nd City Council meeting. There is still, I want to remind people, there is still open comment for our proposed lighting law. Is still open for comment. And with that, we will tonight here to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. We have the Glens Falls Troop 6006, chartered through the Church of the Messiah, to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
To the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, so again, the next thing we would do is open the meeting up to public comment. Having none, we'll go to committee reports. Councilman at Large Clark.
So, in the absence of our chairperson of the Special Projects Committee, we had our first Special Projects Committee meeting tonight, and to go over the one outstanding item that our last Council and Special Projects Committee could not get done due to various constraints, and that is the revision to the tax and cap code in the city. So we gave a little overview, and we've set up another meeting on April 12th, before the council meeting at 6:30. So, and we'll hopefully have some action items from that standpoint, and appreciate the new members on the Special Projects Committee and their insights and different look at this new law that we're proposing, so thank you.
Thank you. Councilman Donahue?
Nothing this time.
Councilman Landry?
No report.
Councilwoman Palmer?
The Building and Codes Committee has met a couple times. We met on we actually met just tonight to discuss our operating permit program. As I previously reported on, we're engaging in a restructuring of our Building and Codes department. We've hired a consultant to take a look at all of our process and how we operate and our staffing. So we met to talk about that previously, and tonight we met to talk about the operating permit component, which will involve inspections of various properties and the permits required. We will be meeting on the 29th at 5:30 to have a workshop about the lighting law. We took some time to consider all the comments that we've been receiving, and we did get quite a bit of comments. We've made some revisions, and we've worked on addressing all the comments we've received, and we will invite anyone interested to come to that workshop and participate in the process, and we're hoping that the draft that we leave that committee with is one that we can vote on in the next council meeting. And then we also have another Building and Codes Committee meeting set for April 26th, and that is to continue the discussion of the department restructuring and the operating permits. Also for the Recreation Committee, we met on 3/15. It was our first meeting, kind of an introduction and a goal-setting meeting. One of the things that we've been working on is trying to get a master list of all of our recreation facilities, who are the various stakeholders that are involved with those, because we have, for example, with Crandall Park, we have the beautification committee, there's Friends of Coles Woods, there's lots of different people who are involved. We've been talking about the programs that we run out of there, the funding sources, and ideas that we have to, improve things going forward. And we're going to be meeting again on the 30th at 6 p.m.
Thank you very much. Councilman Lappin?
I got a couple of things. Just waiting for the applause. So on, I think the 15th, we had a sustainability committee meeting, and we discussed some more of concern one of the residents had about a plant operating out of Kingsbury. And we got a presentation, kind of a run-through by Jeff Flagg about our sustainability efforts, getting our new people up to speed. On April 7th at 6 p.m. to 7:30 p.m. at the Queensbury Community Center, there's a climate change and public health public meeting that I will be attending, or I will be on the panel. And Claudia Bramer, who's the 3rd Ward County Supervisor, will also be on. And let's see, on Thursday this week, I will be doing a Ward 4 State of the City at Beaver's Pub at 7 p.m. and it should run for about an hour. That's it.
Great. Thank you. And Councilwoman Gooden's not with us today, so we'll move to voice vote. So Resolution 1 is approving the minutes of the March 8th, 2022 meeting of the Glens Falls Common Council. And that is it for voice vote. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Under roll call vote, does any council member have any items you'd like to push, resolution they'd like to pull for discussion?
Mayor, I need to abstain from resolution number 13, please. Thank you.
Thank you. So Resolution 2 is a resolution to approve the Glens Falls Community Development Manual payments in the amount of $31,798.65. Resolution 3, to increase revenue code A 0009999-1589A, miscellaneous public safety income, by $958.10, and increase budget expense Code Appropriation A23120-1100 Police Department overtime by $958.10. Resolution 4 is to authorize the GGFT part-time seasonal bus hourly pay to $19.88 per hour base pay and $21.98 per hour evenings and weekends, effective April 4, 2022. Resolution 5 is to approve the construction of a pole barn behind the rec center ice rink to store ski trail grooming equipment with permits, site preparation, and costs covered by the Friends of Coles Woods. Resolution 6 is to authorize the issuance of $1,200,000 in bonds of the City of Glens Falls, Warren County, New York, to pay the cost in connection with stormwater improvements along the Elm and Park Streets of the city. Resolution 7 is to approve a 3-year memorandum of agreement between the CSEA Local 1000 AFSCME, AFL-CIO and the City of Glens Falls for the term of January 1st, 2022 to December 31st, 2024, with the terms and conditions outlined in the attached. Resolution 8 is to approve the encroachment permit as approved by Mayor Collins on May 16, 2022, subject to retroactive Common Council approval for Tecta America Weather Guard LLC, 2003 Chrysler Avenue, Schenectady, New York, 12303, for the placement of a 60-foot boom lift in front of 20 Elm Street on March 16, 2022, in compliance with ADA regulations. Resolution 9 to approve the encroachment permit renewal for Mean Max Brew Works, 193 Glen Street, Glens Falls, for replacement of chairs and tables in front of the restaurant for a period from June 1st, 2022 through May 31st, 2023, in compliance with ADA regulations and current New York State COVID-19 guidelines. Resolution 10 is to approve a mobile food unit license application from Megan Henderson, 325 Fuez Road, Rotterdam, New York, 12306, to vend in Crandall Park for the July 4th celebration on July 3rd, 2022, in compliance with the New York State COVID-19 guidelines. Resolution 11 is to approve the mobile food unit license application from Laura Mason, the Mason Jar, 2009 Meadow Street, Johnstown, New York, 12095, to vend at the Larnac Arts Festival on June 18th and 19th, 2022, in compliance with current New York State COVID-19 guidelines. Resolution 12 to approve a mobile food unit license application for Brian Collis, 19 Justin Street, Latham, New York, 12110, for a seasonal 6-month license to operate Mr. Dingling Ice Cream Truck in the City of Glens Falls, in compliance with the current New York State COVID-19 guidelines. Resolution 13 to approve the hiring of CPL Architects on the 3rd floor of this Common Council chambers to remodel design the Glens Falls City Hall in the amount of $9,860 and CGF 221-01 RFP, and duly authorize the mayor to enter into a contract in the form of approved by the city attorney. Resolution 14 to approve the water and sewer recommendation to reduce account G05999 by $30,879.65 to reduce account F0559 by $9,361.67 appropriated fund balance to increase account G71990-9000 by $30,873.65 and account F71990-9000 by $9,361.67 to cover the additional expense of the approved CSEA contract. Resolution 15, that the Common Council hereby authorizes the mayor to sign the applicable deferred loan agreement and other necessary payment and regulation compliance documents with the one new approved SBRF business applicant as attached, using a portion of this HUD CBG CV allocation award to the city in the amount of $7,500 under the CARES Act. And resolution 16 is to approve the warrant. Do we have a roll call vote, please?
Could I pull 17 out from discussion?
Yeah,
You
17.
read that one in.
I didn't put 17 in. We'll just
Okay.
bring it up under new business for discussion.
Okay,
If
great.
you don't wish a resolution, we won't.
Okay.
Have it.
Also, I think that the numbers in 14 don't match. It says 30,879.65 reduced from G0599, and then it says 30,873.65.
Right. So there's a difference of $6. Would council be okay if that's $6 if I find out which it is and approve it, or do we want to pull? Let's see. Any thoughts of how I handle this, Karen?
You could keep the resolution in, subject to approval through the controller's office or somehow to find out why there's a difference of $6.
Is that acceptable to you folks?
But I'm
Yeah, find
looking
out.
at, I'm wondering if the resolution, let me look at the resolution. It's wrong on your agenda, the resolution that you're approving, I think has the correct numbers.
So the right number, let's adjust it.
$30,879.65.
There it is, right? So that's the number, $30,879.65. And then pulling out, so also the $30,879.65 in the F71999-990-9000 by that same amount.
Right, the second, 30,873 is incorrect, the resolution says 30,879.65. I think it's a typo.
Thank you, thank you for bringing that up, appreciate it. Is that acceptable? Are those resolutions acceptable to the council?
Yes.
And if so, roll call vote, please.
Councilman Lawrence Clark,
Yes.
Councilman Donovan,
Yes.
Councilman Landry,
Yes.
Councilwoman Palmer,
Yes.
Councilman Martin.
Yes.
Thank you very much. Vote passes. Old business, Mr. Clark.
I forgot under committee reports, since we had previously met, we did also meet on the 15th regarding the council committee and economic and community development. Mr. Flagg, our economic development director, and Jim Thatcher gave us an overview of all the projects going on, community development block grant, and all the economic programs and initiatives going on, just as an update and review for our new council members. So thank them for their time, because that was a late evening. I don't think we got out till like 10:30, so it was a late night. So thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Donovan? Any old business? No? Old business, Mr. Landry?
Old business.
Mrs. Palmer?
A couple things. One, I learned from Mr. Thatcher tonight that I had previously reported on our program we had set up through two of our nonprofits in town to distribute funds to landlords. And I've learned that Family Services has distributed 2 loans to landlords so far, and that the landlords have been very happy to recoup those funds, and it also helped the tenants, obviously, who had the background. So that program is working well, and that's something that we're happy, and we thank you for your help with that. I also just wanted to comment that this weekend I happened to be walking around downtown on Friday night and on Saturday morning, and we were just so busy, people going in and out of our restaurants and our shops, so that basketball tournament was so great to have here. And I think that the people I saw walking around from out of town seemed really happy to be here too. So I think we've got a lot of good stuff going on. As a parent who travels for sports, Glens Falls would be a really fun place to go. It's walkable and there's lots to do. Also, I got to attend with my family the symphony over on Sunday, and I don't know if everyone knows, but we are the smallest city in the country to have a professional symphony And that's just another thing that's really cool about Glens Falls. I could walk for 5 minutes and attend a professional symphony orchestra. So, that's it.
Thank you.
Yep.
Councilman Ladd?
Nothing to report.
Thank you. And I just want to, last of old businesses, is I agree that we have so much to offer here, and I want to make sure to recognize the CEO of New York State Public High School Athletic Association, Robert Zayas, for bringing the tournament back to Glens Falls. And many people also don't know that there is an amateur championship basketball association. They're volunteers from Glens Falls. They are what I would term basketball freaks in the best possible way. These are people who've lived and breathed basketball their entire lives and long since retired and are really do work behind the scenes to bring this and make it such a great tournament. It's led by Chip Corlew, who's soon to be retired himself from Glens Falls School District. I just want to thank them all. Certainly the restaurants and bars were full. People were happy, both in and outside of the Civic Center and throughout our downtown. So it is great to bring those events downtown. I want to make sure I recognize them. So I know I've spoken to each of you about our need for ward redistricting over the last several weeks. These are conversations that happened, actually began last year when a local attorney brought them to our attention. And I've asked Bob Curtis to come and speak to us. Bob retired from us many years as the city clerk. And so Bob, would you come on up? So I've given you 2 documents to consider. If at the end, Bob talking, I know that some people, we have some questions about these committees and stuff. I wanted to make sure that we're talking about them in public. Then I'll ask you just simply, if you feel comfortable adopting a resolution, then we'll adopt it. And if you don't, it's fine. We can postpone it until we have more time to discuss it. But I wanted to put it out there. So I've asked Bob to chair this committee. And again, this redistricting is something that has been needed for a long time. It looks like right now that the second ward has about 1,000 people more than some of the other wards. And I forgot what, I had notes with me, but one of the wards is low, about 800 people. So I don't know if it's Ben's or Diana's. Do you remember?
I've got some
Ben's?
breakdown info here.
No? All right. So I'm going to turn this over to Bob and give you all a chance. I know you've seen the documents. Go ahead, Bob.
Thank you, Mayor. I don't know if you want the long version or the short version. Thank you.
How's that, Bob? Thank you.
Okay, thanks. You know, I guess the main thing is this right now is an opportune time for us to do the right thing. It really is. It's a chance for the city to do the right thing with our constituents and actually be in compliance with the Constitution. That's saying something, I think. And it isn't complicated. It isn't political. Basically, when you look at it, it's mathematics. So, and I'll explain that in a bit. Over the past 20 plus years or so, there have been attempts to redistrict in the city. There have been business people, government officials, Chamber of Commerce, and nothing ever really happened. And as the mayor indicated last year, we got an email from a Glens Falls attorney who said that the city was not complying with one person, one vote, the principle of one person, one vote. And he said that something should be done, and something could be done quickly and easily. And I emailed the mayor and the council at the time and said it's too late in 2021 since it's already October to do anything, but it's certainly something that could be looked at and reviewed in 2022. I also felt that because of the nature of the email, the city was being put on notice. And when a municipality is put on notice, whether it's a department or departments or the entire government, there is a responsibility to respond. In January of this year, Mayor Collins indicated that he wanted to look at ward boundary changes. And I applaud the mayor for that. I think it was very proactive, and it was the important first step that we would have to take in this process. So, a little background for you. In 1964, the U.S. Supreme Court ruled that every citizen, regardless of location, has the right to equal legislative representation. That's the core issue right here. And with that, no district can have more than a 10% population difference than another district. So, as the mayor indicated, the city has some disparate population figures here, and they have to be adjusted. I think that as we look at things, the 2020 census, let me go back to that. The 2020 census was released officially in April of last year. Our population went up a bit from 10 years previous. We are now at 14,830. If we take 5, the number of these cities' wards, 5 wards, and divide that figure into the current population, we come out with 2,966. That would be the average for each of the 5 wards if we were consistent with population. Obviously, that's impossible to do. But what isn't impossible is to try to change those wards, the district boundaries, to get within that 10% difference. I don't think that's an impossible task. So that's something for us to look at. Tim, if you could take one and pass that down. Here are the figures for right now. As we look at things, Ward 1 is under that average population. Wards 2 and 3 are over, well over. Ward 4, sorry Ben, it's the smallest ward in the city in terms of population. And Ward 5 is under that as well. So we have to look at a way to try to make this work. And I think what we can look at is adjacencies of one ward to another to see if we have to scale back in one ward and add to another ward. 2 caveats here, and that is, and I hope that Councilman Landry and Councilwoman Palmer haven't been a little nervous about this because they're the 2 wards that have to be scaled back. So what the redistricting committee would have to do is look at your home address, the home addresses of our other elected officials, the 2 city supervisors, and this is not political, and try to steer around that. The other thing is community development, the community development program. We don't have to worry about wards 1, 4, and 5 because we wouldn't be cutting those wards down. As I heard Jim Thatcher tonight, I believe, and Bob, you can correct me if I'm wrong, Ward 2 doesn't have any CD-related low-mod activity. But I believe, Diana, that there is an area, a tract in there that would have to be reviewed. And the best thing to do from that standpoint is to avoid even touching that area with any mapping changes. I don't know from a CD standpoint whether it would matter if an area falls in one ward or another, but I don't think it would be good to carve it up. I don't know if you agree with me on that or not. But so those are 2 caveats. This process is a city charter amendment. It's not a city charter revision. A city charter revision occurs when the city looks at the entire charter and wants to make some changes. And with a city charter revision, you have 2 ways that you can go. You can either have the Common Council decide that it's going to be the revision commission and name itself that and do the work, or the mayor can decide to have a charter revision commission with no less than 9, not more than 13 members, and go through a process that the state dictates for charter revision. This is a charter amendment, so it's a little different.
So we did, I just want to interrupt you right there. So we did think about that, and
Yes.
we do know that there's many, and I believe every council member would say, we do need to look at charter revision. I just didn't want to do it now because it's too big of a task to try to get it I didn't want to conflate this issue with all the other different reviews, and so I figured if we started here with a simple revision and we had a good productive meeting, that we could then say, hey, do we want to see if these people would be willing to stay together and become part of a bigger thing? And that was
I think if
my
that's
thing.
the case, we should go with the size of the commission that the charter revision has between 9 and 15.
Yeah, we definitely would eventually, but we didn't start, I mean, we just decided not to do it. I figured you could all nominate one person. I also thought that we might have trouble getting 9 to 15 people, but we can look at any of it. I just wanted you to know what I was thinking at the time. We can make any changes you guys wish to see with this to make it any way you want. I just wanted you to know what my thinking was.
And Bob, we're out of compliance, right?
We are out of compliance right now, big time. We have been for years. There are those that can say, well, the city kicked the can down the road. You can argue it all you want, but now is an opportunity to take advantage of it, and take advantage of it as nearly as possible after the last census was done. Ben, I know earlier you had some questions about that. I'll just briefly read here, and this is from NICOM, the Conference of Mayors, amending the city charter versus charter revision, just so that you feel more comfortable with this. The terms charter amendment and charter revision are often used interchangeably. As a practical matter, when the term charter amendment is used, it usually refers to relatively minor changes to the charter or a change to one or more sections. Whereas charter revision, I knocked it out. Charter revision contemplates substantial change, such as changing the structure of the government or a complete review of the charter. Relatively minor or limited amendments are frequently accomplished via a local law. So, charter revision process demands that there would be a local law and a mandatory referendum. This also would have to be done by a mandatory referendum. What we are doing, if we go ahead with this, to make the changes to the city ward boundaries, it changes nothing here in terms of the voting for the members of the council, but it does at the city supervisor, Warren County supervisor level, changes the dynamic there for the 5 ward supervisors. Because now, if we go into this and we even out the wards in terms of population, the city supervisors who operate by a weighted vote process are going to have to sort of change that. That's up to Warren County to do that, but it's going to change the weighted vote aspect. Weighted vote is simply this: he or she who has the most population in his or her district has more weighted vote, and he or she who has less population has less weighted vote. So probably what would happen here is if we did this and got comparative figures for population for the 5 wards, most of these supervisors would probably have a pretty close weighted vote. And that's something that would have to be ironed out by the Board of Supervisors.
Do you know when the city annexed the Wizard Road
Yes.
Park, what was the process that was done there?
Okay, let me tell you, when I was city clerk, there were 2 revisions to the, or amendments rather, to the charter that I was there for. In the year 2000, the city looked at the possibility of going from an elected city treasurer to a city controller, an appointed position. That had to be done by mandatory referendum because in New York State municipal home rule law, there are 12 subjects, and if any of those fall into that category, it has to be done that way. This was going from an elected official to an appointed official. Went to mandatory referendum in November, the voters passed it, became law.
Was there a committee that was set up for that?
No, it was
why are we
strictly
setting
done
up a committee?
by the mayor and the council, the city attorney, and the local law was written. The local law had to be pending approval of the voters, but that was the process.
And that we could use that same process.
We could use that.
I just didn't want, I wanted to set up a committee that we weren't part of, so that people wouldn't accuse me or us of being politically biased or motivated.
Right.
That was why, that's why I considered this.
The other thing that we wanted to do too is provide some guidelines for future administrations and council, because this isn't, and I agree with your comment about putting something in there about, having something after every census. I think it's important that we establish a set of rules or guidelines for future administrations or future councils. So again, this process here is gonna be much larger because we are so out of whack, just like with our assessed value, because we kicked the can down the road with this as well. And I think once we get this squared away, it'll just be a simple matter of fact of this group being together and reviewing it based on the guidelines that were established by this committee, that this council and mayor that work so well
So
apolitically.
just to, go on to piggyback on one thing that you were saying. So we are looking to maybe make a revision or two to this, so can we pull this today?
Sure.
Yeah, we,
Absolutely. I think that we are, I thought, well, it depends, so yes, we can pull it, there's no problem at all. And then we can add any changes we want. I wanted to get it in front of you and the public so that whatever postpone we did wasn't gonna take too long, so we have time to do it. But the second thing is too, that the change that you had suggested, I think is a good one, but I think I would put the change in under the, when we're done, where would you put the wasn't there a suggestion to put it in like the law, or
The
sorry.
change for
For the
reviewing
every
this
10
every 10
years.
Absolutely, that would be the easiest.
Put it right in at the
yes.
law,
Yeah,
so,
yeah.
agreed. Or you could change it on the resolution now, but whatever you want. that's
Local law
great.
would, I don't know why I'm speaking in the microphone. Local law would be easier because then the clerk's office would have that responsibility
Right.
to every 10 years. But to finish on what I was discussing earlier, later in 2003, the city and the town of Queensbury negotiated and finally agreed on land that was off Luzerne Road for industrial park purposes, and that was a charter amendment as well. It did not go to a mandatory referendum. There was no population in Queensbury that we knew of. There is no population in Glens Falls now. It's industrial park property. So those are the two charter amendments that we have had since then. This, again, this process would go to a mandatory referendum because of what I said about the city supervisors.
What's
So-
for the referendum, what does it have to pass by?
Well,
Is it simple majority?
Yeah, it has to pass by one vote. Citizens voted in, that's good. So the process here would be have the redistricting committee meet and flush out all of that has to be done. And I think that the committee is going to have to work very closely with Warren County, with the Geographic Information System, GIS, with digital mapping, with computers, with experts. And I think that this can be done rather quickly and not get into a political shouting match. This is not to benefit the Democratic Party, to benefit the Republican Party, to benefit anybody. It's not gerrymandering, it's simply making changes to the ward boundaries to comply with the Constitution. That's the simple process. So once the committee gets together, and if we get mapping, then the committee can then try to structure a proposed local law that would go to the Common Council. The city clerk's office would distribute to you, to the mayor's office, most importantly to the city attorney, so that Karen can take a look at that and make sure that everything is sufficient. If there are any revisions that would have to be made, so be it, that would be the time to do it. With that local law, there would have to be a proposition. And the proposition would be so that it can go to the ballot. Proposition can be easy. Shall the city of Glens Falls change ward boundaries to comply with one person, one vote, effective 2023? Citizens pass it, it becomes law in 2023. If it fails, which I would hope that it wouldn't, then that's it for discussion on the issue, because the voters have spoken.
Unless it's lights.
Wow. Okay.
What if the voters don't approve it, but we're not in compliance with constitutional law? What trumps?
Well, that puts us into a tough situation, and I would defer to Karen with her legal judgment. I would hope that what we could do here between now and time of enactment of this thing is to have some public meetings and try to stress the importance of this, that this is not partisan in any way, that is an attempt to try to change things to be current.
That's why the one thing that I thought was most important about the guidelines were that there was to be no voting history to be looked at all by this council, and that we wanted to make sure that it was impartial, had to do with population only.
Right.
And so, it's funny, I never thought it wouldn't pass. If you set it up the right way with honest intent and good, clean, independent people, I mean, it's what you would think. But it could, and then we'd have to cross the next bridge, right? We could look at a weighted vote, we could look at other things.
And there's nothing to say that you couldn't then say to the public, let's take another look, let's go and set up another redistricting committee and go through the process again, if enough people agreed with that. I would hope that people would understand this, that we have not been, and there's no benefit to anybody. I mean, one person could say, well, gee, Bob Landry is the 2nd Ward councilman, and he has 3,000 plus constituents, and Ben Lapham has 1,400 constituents. Who has the advantage? I don't know. You all are very conscientious in your jobs, so that doesn't affect anything, but let's just level the playing field here across the board. That would be the easiest suggestion. After all of this is done, there is work to do, and I'm sorry, but it's the law of unforeseen consequences. If this passes, Warren County Board of Elections has a lot of work to do, because every ward in the city has now changed in terms of getting people enrolled in voting. So sorry about that, but they would probably have time to do that, November till whenever the next election.
Would they have to? It would just be they would just be notified of their new ward and.
Could be, but
There might be a new polling place.
right, and the Board of Elections is going to have to go through that process and figure it out. Likewise, the supervisors at Warren County level are going to have to do the same thing with regard to how they're going to work the new weighted vote for the 5 city supervisors. I don't know if they had all an even vote, whether that's going to impact the overall vote or not, but I don't think we have to worry about that. We'll let them decide. But that's everything in a nutshell. I don't know, Ben, if any of the questions that you had earlier have been answered. Or...
I think most of the things that I've
okay.
So.
And if anyone else has any questions?
Bob, taking a look at the 2022 calendar, whatever election day is in November, what's the drop dead date?
Yes, the drop dead date. I have always figured through the years when I was city clerk, rather than looking forward, let me look backward. So the election is November 8th. 3 months prior to the election is the drop dead date to get a proposition to the Board of Elections. So you're back to August 8th. If you have 6 weeks or so, lucky enough, to set up for a proposed local law, that takes us back to probably mid-June. So really, April, May, half of June, you got 2.5 months to pull this off. Can it be done? By golly, we can try it.
So I think that, and Bob, thank you for asking that question, and thank you for outlining that time frame. Even though we aren't voting on this tonight, I think it's important that we, as a council, start thinking about who we would like to be appointed in each of our wards to represent them. And there are the guidelines there that we have to follow. I know Diana's. So take a look at that, and we can adjust the things that we need to adjust. But at least it gives you an understanding of where we want to go. And the other thing too, I think is important to know is that I'm sure people will ask, well, why aren't we doing weighted vote? Wouldn't that be much easier? And I think our feeling was no. People's right to speak shouldn't be diminished, and the people that they represent shouldn't be diminished. And we should make, and everyone here on this council, and I know in the past councils, have been treated equally, and they should continue to be treated equally. And that's what our goal is, not to diminish anyone's authority or power on this council. It's to give everyone an equal voice on this council. That's our overall arching goal. It doesn't mean that, and it's not a political thing, because it's just the matter of having everyone represented equally, and that's the most important thing. So I appreciate that.
Plus, Jim, if you went to weighted vote, right where the city clerk is sitting, the deputy clerk, there would have to be a little machine that would calculate each weighted vote at council meetings.
Yes.
Yeah, I didn't even think of that. Look, I wanted to make sure we as a body, I am so proud to lead this group of people. And I wanted to make sure everybody felt equal in every way that we could. I was very resistant to even thinking about a way to vote. And it is a heavy lift. We've got 2.5 months. I think that if you're comfortable with it, what we can do is just, if you're comfortable with it, you've got maybe 10 days to talk amongst each other and make any suggested changes you'd like. And then I'd love to put it on next council's thing. I would also like to ask you to think in the next 10 days or 14 days of who you might want to appoint. I know there's questions about the guidelines, so any changes you want to make, please feel free. And I wanted you also to know that I won't be at the next council meeting, but I know that you can have this. Councilman Clark will be the chair of the meeting, and that you go ahead and pass it in my absence. If you're okay with it, that's what I'd like to do.
How many people are you looking for to represent?
I thought, again, one person. I selected Bob to help chair the thing.
Okay.
If every council member brought one name forward, again, Ed also give you the paper version of it. It has some guidelines. We'd rather the people not be a member of a political party, right, or not a political committee, not to be a city employee, obviously not to be a councilman. I'd rather you not, I don't think I mentioned this, but please don't nominate yourself. I think it's important that we be off of this, that be at an arm's length away from us, and that these people can independently look at this and to not look at any political issue and come back with some suggestions.
Councilman Palmer, did you still have questions? I know earlier there was an email that went to the.
I think we're good, right?
You're good?
I think we're good.
Okay.
Yeah.
Awesome.
There we have it.
Thank you. So if nobody has it, we'll go ahead and put it on next week's, and just let me know any changes you want to make. Glad to hear.
Great. Thank you.
Retirement's over, Rob.
Yeah.
That was
Welcome back.
Well, yeah,
Punishment always a button.
You're self-help, Bob.
that's right. Thank you all. Great conversation. And one more piece of new business, I just wanted to let you know that in conjunction with the LDC, the city is accepting new applications until April 8th, 2022 to start up the young small business for limited funding available through the GF Drive initiative. It's part of the larger downtown revitalization initiative. The focus of the GF Drive is for retail businesses, professional office startups, and expansion products within the DRI target area, particularly for goods and services that cannot be currently found in downtown. More information is available through the Economic Development Director's office at City Hall. Why don't you all make that? We'll make that public as well. There's some money there for small businesses who want to grow in Glens Falls.
Mayor, if I could, I'd just like to make one recognition. The Warren County Board of Supervisors recognized Amy Collins, our Tourism and Business Development Director, along with, I believe there was 3 or 4 of her colleagues in tourism throughout the county. It's a wonderful recognition to get from the county. What I like best about it is that the county tourism department realizes that Glens Falls is here. And I think that Amy had a lot to do with that, and I'd like to congratulate her on that recognition and the good work she does every day.
Here, you're here, second. We open up to public comment.
Are we doing new business for the council?
Oh, I'm sorry, I apologize, let's go right around. New business, Councilman Clark.
I have none.
New business, Councilman Donovan.
Nothing.
Councilman Landy.
Just one thing, new business that's located here in Glens Falls, the Rocket Recycling, up in the second ward. They didn't need sidewalks, so they moved right in. They're located at the corner of Ridge Street and Raymond Avenue. It's a recycling business. Gentleman that owns it is Tyler Russell, and welcome to the city. We appreciate you moving here.
Thank you. Councilwoman Tom.
I just wanted to mention, I know we put out a notification and a release, but open pickup will start on April 18th and go through May 27th. So even though, DPW is saying even though it's nice weather right now, people might be tempted to do yard work and put out their open pickup, we could still get snow. I mean, it happens here, so please don't do that yet. You can still put out your bags, but starting on the 18th, there's open pickup, and the schedule for how they move through the wards is also listed. And I would encourage people, if you don't know already, to sign up for the notifications on our website, because this information will just go to you via text or email, and you'll get these notifications. And then the other thing is Supervisor Bramer and I will be holding our first third ward forum this term on April 13th at 6:30. We're still finalizing a location. We always used to do it at the schools, but we can't, at our local school, but we can't do that anymore in times of COVID. I don't know when that'll start to change, but, so we've got 2 different locations we're looking at, and as soon as I get that information, I'll put it out for my
April
constituents.
13th?
April 13th at 6:30. Yep, that's it.
Thank you. Councilman Lapple.
No, thank you.
And so I think we should go to open public comment. Any final public comment?
I have one question and one
Sure.
Come right on up and tell us your name and I'm sorry. Should have said that earlier today, but
My name's Paul Tracky.
Paul?
I live over on Lexington Avenue.
Great.
Yeah, one question and one observation. What is the lighting law? I haven't heard of that, I'm not familiar with it.
It's on our website, Paul. You can go ahead and take a look at it there. It's a suggested law that helps nuisance lights from a neighbor who might put up a light that's shining in, say, on your property, and it asks them to turn the light down onto their property and not onto yours.
That's a good idea.
Thank you.
The other observation that I've seen is regarding the assessment of the taxes.
Yes.
Is as I've been talking to people, a lot of people don't think they can change this. They don't think they can come in and talk to anybody.
Yeah.
No,
They're reading the paper.
When they got the letter, there's a number that they can call. And
Yeah.
that's actually has been, the mayor extended the time period for that.
Yeah.
So that goes through the end of this week, or is it the?
Actually, it goes to, I think another two weeks of public comment. So, making appointments. So it's on that letter, Paul, so it's right on that letter. And we actually had several meetings, just so you know. We talked about this many advance and held some committee meetings for people to come in and ask questions. But some people just didn't get it. But please, anybody's got any questions, they just need to call that number, make an appointment, and go and see
If
them.
you've got a letter that says this is your reassessment, then there's a number on there to call.
Yeah.
And also, that's for having kind of a discussion.
Yeah.
There's also a day to challenge your assessment, that'll be in May.
Yeah, I've been directing people to do that.
Yep.
But a lot of people aren't. They're just not looking at it, and I've been kind of, hey, you need to read this and look at it.
That's right.
So some people are just not aware because they're not looking at that piece of paper,
Yeah.
so I don't know if there's anything else you guys can do.
Gee, we had it, literally, we continue to mention it everywhere we can, in newspaper articles, we had several newspaper articles, did everything we could, and it said it in the letter too, so. If you have any suggestions, you're welcome
The
to.
press release
Yeah,
said
yeah.
that the city property owners now have until March 25th. So that's the end of this week.
Okay, thanks, that's all I have.
And know that, Paul, what Ben said, I wanna re-say it, even after that point, then the actual formal they can contest it. For now, they can just come and they'll help them to understand the whole process. So this doesn't end until I think, well into May or June, where people can, so nobody's gonna lose their opportunity to learn more and to contest it.
Yeah, I have been encouraging people to come in and talk.
Sure.
A lot of people just don't think they can do anything.
Yeah, yeah.
So that's kind of what I'm seeing on the ground out here, is they just don't think they can do anything about it.
Well, and some of them, their property values went up and their number of the taxes went down, so mine went down significantly. So so they're probably not gonna call, right?
I wish I had that problem, mine went the other way.
Fair enough, no, you're not alone.
Thank
I'm with you. Thank you. If there's no further public comment, could we have a motion to adjourn?
So moved. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
We are adjourned. Thank you all very much.